This is a video to explain how Circle Prepare works. So when you are on the dashboard, you can see your case. Here I just selected my own case. I can see it here on the dashboard. Usually you have many more cases. Once you want to run it in Circle Prepare, you have to click on the blue eye here. This is loading the case. It takes few seconds, and then once you arrive here, you can see several things. First, you have the maxillary and the mandibula here in the center of the scene. I can move it using the right key, the right button of the mouse. On the top, you have the help menu here, giving you all the information on what can be done in this scene. So the display menu control, the camera controls, and all the other tools. There is a different help menu on each step, so you can use it on each of those 6 steps. Here you have the information about the patient, so that's the patient ID. These are the instruction given by the doctor, the dentist. So here it's me, the date, and the training. So there is no instruction, but there could be more instruction. Here you can link to give the dentist the link and see the software working at the same time that you do the job. And here you can create report a bug so that you can send a ticket to the team, developer team, here Circle Lucy. You can use administrator, but better using Circle Lucy for a problem with the software. You can write here a description with what you expected and what happened. And that will automatically take a snapshot of the scene and send it to the dev with your description. On the left side, you have the display menu with 3 buttons: hide all, which will hide all the meshes; show all, which will show all the meshes; and if you unzoom and use the fit view button, that will fit the zoom so that you can see the meshes properly. Then you can either hide one of the mesh, or make it transparent, or make it solid. That's the 3 options here on those 3 state buttons. And you have here this tool that can be seen as a manipulator, a 3D manipulator with the 3 axes here of translation here in the straight lines, and the 3 circles are the 3 rotation manipulators. So you can see I can just move it like this. If you did that by accident, you can just select the mesh and press here reset the select component, and that will bring it back to the original place. Of course, you also can move directly the mesh by keeping the left key press, or you can just rotate the mesh in the camera angle and just use here undo or redo to make it going back to the original position. I bring everything back to the original position by pressing on this key. Now, this step here is the labeling step. So as you can see here on the display menu, you have the label already set for the maxilla and the mandible, maxilla being the blue and the green being the mandible. If for some reason one of the meshes here have no label, you have the choice between all those labels here. So mainly maxilla, auxiliary maxilla for when the prosthesis is inside the patient mouth, the maxillary wax up when you scan the prosthesis on the maxillary side, and then you have the face scan, auxiliary face scan to match the face scan, and the occlusion key when you have the bites of the maxillary and the mandible. Then you can ignore some meshes, and some of them can be undone. Once you have labeled all the meshes, you can move to the next step, which is the reparation step. While you're moving to this step, the software automatically repair all the meshes. Repairing here in this case will fill all the holes that are inside the meshes. It can be tiny holes, just like this one you can see here, but it can be bigger. And once you, actually there is no holes here, it's the contour. But once you um, have some holes, it will appear here in red, and you just have to click here on the repair maxilla or repair mandible to fill those holes. Here in this case, the holes have been automatically detected and repaired, so you don't have to do anything. I won't go inside those tools because they are not useful for this, but I will go in the cleaning part, which is very useful. In this case, for example, you can see that there are some little bumps on the side of the mesh. Here on the mandible, actually it's going back on the cheek. So this is going to disturb a little bit the prosthesis creation. So what we can do is click on the mandible, use the paint 3D region, paint on this side of the mesh, and maybe a bit too big, so I just reduce the size of the brush, cancel the region and do it again. Like that, I can select all this part. Right. And now I'm going to suppress it by cutting the element. So all the side of the mesh that are going higher than the crest of the gingiva, you should remove because it's going to disturb the creation of the prosthesis on the next step. So you can do either very simply a little line like that and cut the element. That will cut all the part that are higher like that. Or if you prefer to control things a bit more, you can use by undo, you can use the lasso, for example, and just go like this and select the region you want. And again, cut element. Both tools are okay. It's really up to you to choose from a 3D region that you paint and select, or a lasso that you will select like that. Once you did this correction, well, I can cut a little bit more here. The 2D region is very similar to the 3D, so I cut it like that. Once you've cleaned the mesh as you wanted, which means removing all the part higher than the crest on the side of the mesh, I won't do everything, but that gives you the idea. You can also sculpt the mesh. Sculpting is very simple. You can select the mesh and then inflate it. As you can see here, I created a big bump. I can remove it or dig on it, which is the opposite of the bump. There is some kind of holes. And of course, you can smooth. And smoothing is very interesting because sometimes when you scan your patient, there are some small saliva bumps, and it creates those little bumps on the mesh, and that will disturb the creation of the prosthesis. So do a little bit of smoothing, for example here, and maybe increasing the intensity. You can adjust the mesh a little bit. Of course, don't do that too much because otherwise the mesh will be flat and that won't be a good prosthesis anymore. But you see the point, removing all those little bumps by smoothing them. Right, once you did that, you need to go back to the repair tool because you changed the mesh um, triangle, so you need to repair them again. Right, now everything is green, I can move to the next step, which is the registering step. In this step, you are going to create good occlusion. So registering is to register maxilla and mandibular in terms of occlusion. In this case, the two meshes came in good occlusion. You can see they are well placed compared to one another. But when you move on top of the maxilla, you can see that the mandibula is actually going through the mandible, the maxilla. And this is because sometimes the intraoral scan are placing them in too much occlusion. So you need to repair that by unchecking the point and meshes and then computing the registration for only the collision. And that will create this. Right. And like that, you see there is no more problem here in terms of occlusion. And the two meshes are still well placed. So you'll see sometimes you need to use the mesh or even the points. And this will be in another video. Once you registered, you need to move to the next step, which is the occlusion and symmetry plane computation. So this takes a while because the software does that actually automatically. that will place the two planes compared to the maxilla and the mandibula. So the plane tool is actually showing you the two symmetry and occlusion plane, as you can see here on the shape of the head. This was done automatically, and at the same time you see that the little gizmo at the bottom became a head, and with the different um, letters to show you what's seen. So, for example, here from the front. And that will help you having some pre-designed camera orientation. I will first want to adjust the symmetry plane. Well, here the symmetry plane is perfectly adjusted, but I can change it using those manipulators if I need. I don't want to, so I just do undo. And I can also change the occlusion tool. And in that case, I really need to change it. So first I need to place the incisive plane on the incisive of the maxilla. Then I need to place the last molar tooth with this yellow arrow. And with the central yellow arrow, I can then adjust the SPI plane. Here, it's fairly flat, so I put it like this. And then I use the blue arrow to set the occlusion plane exactly on the tip of the maxillary tooth, or the teeth actually. To be sure, I check on the other side by pressing on the B. It's fairly good here, and I can check on the front. Here again, it's perfectly set. This is very important to set properly because that's where the teeth of the prosthesis for the mandibula are going to lie on this black arrow. So if you don't set that properly, that will change the work of the prosthesis after. I won't show you the articulator here. Well, actually, I'll show you very quickly the articulator. There are three angle and lengths until that you can set for the articulator. So that's actually changing the parameters of the articulator. I will let you change that if you want. But the most important part is um, the vertical dimension. Here you can see by using this slider, you can change and adjust how the mandible is open compared to the maxilla. Here I left it to 0 because there is good occlusion. Finally, I move to the last stage, which is checking the prescription. Very important stage because sometimes the dentist will um, set the prescription with a few errors. So here I will check first the maxilla. In that case, you can see 70s on each side and 70s on each side. That's good and correct. I check the mandibula, and here there is 2 and 1, the 43 and 44, that's correct, and the 33, and that's correct too. If for some reason you can see that there is a 38, I can check the 38 here and put it present. Of course, here it's absent, missing, so I press on the missing tool. I can change only present and missing teeth. If for some reason I want to change prosthetic tools that are here in pink, I will need to go back to the dashboard and ask the dentist to change it or change it myself. Here you can see all those prosthetic tools, prosthetic teeth are in resin, but you can see in different tools that they can be in metal or other material. Right, once I've done the verification of the prescription, I move to the segmentation tool. This is again done automatically by the software. So while there is this little um, animation to wait, the segmentation of the software is being done, which means separating the gingiva and the teeth. So you can see here that the segmentation tool separated the gingiva in pink and the teeth in white. Of course, I want to check that it's actually done the job properly, and in that case, it didn't. So I want to um, change the color of the gingiva, and to do that, if I go in the Help menu, I can see that I have to press Shift and left click to place gingiva seeds. So Shift and left click, and I press gingiva seeds. Okay, the software is recomputing, and now the teeth here have been set as gingiva, which is not the case. So I just pressed left click, and that will automatically select the teeth and white. Here, gingiva should be here, and I place it everywhere by pressing Shift and left click. Again, that gives you a better approximation of the gingiva. Okay, now you need really to check that all the teeth are correctly segmented. Maybe here I could place a little bit of gingiva. Okay, that's correct for the maxillary. And I'm going to move to the mandible. The mandible on its side is correct. The three teeth are well segmented. Right, once I've done that, I can move to the gingival arch adjustment. And this is also a very important stage. Your prosthetic teeth are going to be placed on so the prosthetic teeth are going to be placed on this arch, the black arch. This is the gingival arch. So I need to place properly the back of the mouth, the last teeth. It's actually the last present tooth or the last prosthetic tooth. So, and then I place the rest of the arch at the middle of the teeth. So here properly like that, and the back of the mouth here. Once I've done that for the maxillary, I move to the mandible. And this is difficult to place because I cannot see where is the last tooth. So I use the maxilla as transparency as a template. Well, roughly it's well placed here. And in that case, maybe it should actually be moved back a little bit. And then once I have that, I can hide the maxillary and place all those points roughly on the crest of the gingiva. If I want, I can add a point or remove a point. This is done by Shift left key or Shift right key, right button of the mouse, sorry. Okay, once I have that, I'm happy with this arch. I just have to press on the center of the circle here, and here press this for 1 second. Again, this is very important to place this arch because that's where the prosthetic teeth are going to be set in the next step. Right, this is it for the circle prepare. Thank you for watching.